The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Shall we begin? Let's begin.
The original version of Disney's Lilo and Stitch featured the main characters hijacking a 747 and crashing it into buildings in a major metropolis. It's one of the major examples of a movie needing to be drastically changed in response to the events of September 11, 2001. Spy Game didn't feature any airplanes, but it does feature a terrorist bombing that is central to its plot. When we wonder how a big-budget film headlined by Robert Redford and Brad Pitt failed to succeed with audiences, we have to wonder if it was at least partially due to being released just 1 month after the events of 9/11. I'm Todd.
And I'm Dave, and we like to talk about spy movies.
Spy Game may have failed at the box office, but it succeeds wildly in giving us a lot of tradecraft to dissect, and that's what we're going to do in this episode of Spies Like Us.
That was perfect, except it's Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, I'm not fixing that.
Okay.
So, Spy Game. It's a 2001 film portraying events in 1991 with U.S.-China trade negotiations happening in the background, kind of an important plot point. A lot of the film is done in flashbacks. We got 1975 in Vietnam, sometime later in Germany, and 1985 in Beirut are flashbacks. The principal agency portrayed in this film is the CIA. We also get some appearances from VOPO. I'm not sure exactly if you're supposed to say it that way, but the VOPO is the East German police from the end of the war to up until 1990. So if they were to show up in this film in real time, that would be incorrect. But since they show up in the Germany flashback part, it's totally appropriate. And we also get some very minor appearances from the PLO and the KGB. Tony Scott directs. That is Ridley Scott's brother, who I did not know this about him until doing the research for this. He directed True Romance.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry to cut you off. I didn't know that. I just found that out. That's awesome.
Here's another weird one. I think Top Gun, which I really think is one of the best movies of all time. I fucking love Top Gun. For some reason, I think I always thought Top Gun was a Michael Mann movie. Does that make sense to you, or do you
a little bit?
Yeah.
I was a little young during those times, so I was just like, yay, airplanes.
Oh, it holds up so good, I think. He also did Crimson Tide and Enemy of the State. And he was one of the producers of the Company miniseries that we like.
Oh, well, not exactly a lightweight.
No. But he's no Ridley, except I don't know, dude. Top Gun though. I'm surprised. Top Gun he seems like he was really like batting way outside of his weight class on that one, and succeeding like crazy.
Right. I loved Enemy of the State, but I'm a big conspiracy guy.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Really? But, it's really good.
But Daniel wants us to do that one. We'll put it up there soon. It's a Robert Redford and Brad Pitt vehicle. Brad Pitt passed on playing the title role, passed on Jason Bourne for this project. I didn't even know he was ever even in consideration on that one.
Yeah, I think we brought that up when we did Bourne.
Oh, I don't think so. I think this came as a total surprise to me.
Oh, really?
Maybe that's just fuzzy memory on my part. I gotta say, I mean, I'm not sure you can be a bigger Brad Pitt fan than I am, without like actually having posters of him in your bedroom. But I'm I'm happy he didn't do Bourne. I don't see it. I mean, I feel like Brad Pitt can do anything, but for some reason, I'm not feeling that one. Maybe it's just because I like Matt Damon in that role so much.
Yeah.
Right. And his reason, so, I mean, maybe he passed on it because he's maybe saw the same thing I'm seeing, that, like, you know, this is not exactly a perfect Brad Pitt type of role, but it also very well could have been just because he wanted to do this movie so badly. And the reason he wanted to do this movie so badly was to work with Robert Redford, who they were friends.
Well, that's interesting because I know you brought up multiple times that you see Robert Redford and Brad Pitt and that he probably studied him a lot.
That is how I feel. And I have mentioned that a bunch of times. And I think, like, I was even talking about that when we did Sneakers, and, you know, Brad Pitt wasn't even, like, you know, he's not even involved in that movie. But I really feel it here. They definitely don't have the same voice, but there's something about their physicality and their acting decisions. Just, I would not be surprised if I were to find out that Brad Pitt had, like, heavily studied Robert Redford, specifically in training himself as an actor. But
Right.
when I Googled it, all I could find is a whole bunch of people talking about how much they look alike. Like, a lot of people just think they're basically twins. I don't see that as much as everyone else.
Yeah, no, I don't see that. But when you pointed out a lot of the mannerisms, I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't notice that.
They both can definitely, like, pour on the charm in a very kind of similar way. Overall, and it's no knock on Redford, but, you know, I think Brad Pitt's got, like, a bit more range. You know, he can do some things that I don't think Redford can. As
Yeah.
well. And also Brad Pitt, you know, also in addition to being, like, such a great leading man kind of actor, you know, he also does really good character work, like in
Yeah.
12 Monkeys and Burn Before Reading and stuff like that.
After.
And Burn After Reading, right? Oh yeah. Oh, we're
I was
gonna
gonna
do.
say, I was just gonna say, I don't think Redford could do Burn After Reading. That creepy smile in the closet. I don't see a Redford smile with that.
Yeah, he's just got the thing. Um, Trivia, maybe. You know, Bishop. Okay, so Brad Pitt's name. It's his name, right? Not his cover name. It's his name. His last name is Bishop.
Right. It's Tom Bishop.
Right. And that was Redford's alias in Sneakers. Remember?
Yeah.
And that in itself was like an Easter egg from 3 Days of the Condor, in which the last two names on a casualty list that's seen in the movie of a bombed CIA building were Martin and Bishop. And then Martin Bishop is what Redford goes by in Sneakers.
Oh.
So, yeah, Easter egg time on that one. Speaking of 3 Days of the Condor, real quick, too, which I haven't seen yet. I am really excited to get around to it, though, because I've heard great things. It has, like, Spy Game's been described by a few people as a very neat companion piece to 3 Days of the Condor, which is way back from 1975, because in that film, Redford plays a very young CIA analyst who's, like, has to, like, be forced into being an actual spy kind of thing by, like, you know, a crazy situation. So it's kind of neat to have the two movies where in one he's a pure, like, CIA neophyte, and then have this one 26 years later where he's playing you know, a super veteran weathered spy that's at the end of his career.
Yeah. We definitely have that on our list, so we gotta get to that at some point.
I wish we could do all the movies at once,
Right.
but we can't.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the setup for the movie. It is time for the briefing room where we will go in and tear apart the tradecraft, good and bad.
Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
So, yeah, like several other movies, it doesn't come up in all spy movies, but in a fair amount of them where we got, like I said, a lot of this movie is told in flashback. You get the main story that's happening current day, 1991, and a series of flashbacks while like basically some CIA executives are grilling the Robert Redford character, who is Nathan Muir. He's being asked to basically describe the history of his relationship with Nathan Bishop. Sorry, no, Tom Bishop.
Tom Bishop.
Tom
Yeah.
Bishop, who is played by Brad Pitt. So, and interestingly too, I saw one reviewer say that like the three flashback sequences, they all kind of could be considered as like short films in their own right, which I thought was actually very apt and correct. But what we're gonna do, since everything that's happening in the main story all centers around what's going on in 1991, but all of that is predicated on everything that's happened in the past, we're going to take this podcast basically like in chronological order. We'll get you all caught up with the past events, and it all starts with where Nathan Muir and Tom Bishop first met in Vietnam, 1975.
Yeah, Mir lands in Vietnam to assassinate like a very significant Laotian general, and he needs to get an army sniper to kind of pull it off. And that's when we first meet Bishop. Well, not in the film, but when he's describing his relationship with Bishop, this is the very first meeting. Um, he meets him in a camp, and one of the things I really liked about this first meeting is the first time he sees him. It's Bishop and this Vietnamese guy, I'm presuming, and they're just completely separated from the rest of the platoon, I guess. And they're eating Vietnamese food, and one of the commanding officers is just like, "Yeah, it smells terrible if you ask me." And then Redford's statement is, "Not to the enemy." So, first off, plus spy points on that was because there's a whole thing where people can smell like what you eat, kind of thing. And for a spy, I liked this because Redford already tracked him as someone that knows how to blend in, so to speak.
Takes his job very seriously. Takes it
dead serious.
Takes it to the utmost level. Yeah, the details. Yeah, that's a good point. Throughout the, even with his interview with Bishop, and also the way that this sniper assassination operation goes down, Bishop does like evidence or showcase all the elements that Muir would look for in a recruit for the CIA. He's very patriotic. He volunteered, which is something that Muir definitely notes. He's got massive dedication to the job, and he's super steady under fire. And
yeah, he was like a machine when he first met him. It looked like your typical idea of like a Hollywood soldier, I guess. They're just a machine, hoorah. Well, this is Army, never mind, sorry. But it does look like the dates were a little wrong.
Yeah, I did note that in the movie. The let's see, it's it's like I think they say it's April of 1975 specifically, and that was like the Army had actually pulled out, like I think a whole year earlier. Like almost all of the U.S. troops were gone. In April 1975 was when that famous shot of the helicopter taking the last few people out of the embassy. That was just like a handful of American stragglers, that were sitting in Saigon. So it does seem weird. I mean, we don't have to super quibble on it. It doesn't pertain
Yeah, right.
to the spyness of the movie, but it also just seems to be like a total unforced error. Like, they could have just said this was 1974.
Yeah,
Would have made more
unless
sense.
this is kind of like aftermath covert stuff. And
Yeah,
were they in Laos pulling off this sniper job, or I mean, it
yeah.
seems like they were in the middle of the war just from the way they were talking. So yeah, it does kind of seem kind of weird.
Well, I liked the fact the target is Laotian. They actually filmed it in Morocco, which is why it doesn't really look like Vietnam if you pay super close attention.
Right.
But yeah, Laos was. See, I think like I wondered like, well, why is the CIA even involved in this? Right? Like this seems like it could have just been an army mission that was just handed off. Like, why does he need to get directly involved? And what I think is going on is I think the operation is supposed to go off in Laos because Laos was like an unofficial theater of war, but a lot of covert operations went down there on both sides.
Yeah, Redford mentioned he was working on the Phoenix Project, which is actually a very famous op. um, if you read William Colby's book Honorable Men, which is a fantastic book, by the way, if you're a fanboy like I am, according to Colby, the Phoenix Project was teaching rural areas to farm and make money so that they were financially secure, so that they couldn't be recruited by the Viet Cong. If you've talked to Vietnam vets like I have, they'll tell you it was an assassination squad operation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm sure there's a little bit of truth to a lot of, I'm sure it was a plan to help rural areas like farm and stuff, but I'm sure that also could have been a nice cover for some assassination squads. So, but a lot of that came out during after Watergate when Colby had to testify before Congress.
I think that's a really nice bit of historical accuracy there. Might be a good time to just point out though that even though like the movie like travels through like these different periods of time and they all seem to be pretty consistent with like historical events that were going on at the time, none of the actual people in the movie are like historical. This isn't like Argo where they're trying to tell a story of something that actually happened. It's definitely like a piece of pure fiction just with historical settings. So like for instance this target, this Laotian general or whatever, like which I think they give him a name or something, but it's just a made up name. It's not a real dude.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real historical. I mean, it's probably historical in the fiction, quote unquote. I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bishop's recruitment was actually kind of interesting because after that op, this we get a big Hollywood scene where he's a sniper with his spotter buddy, and he can't pull off the shot. He pulls off the shot at a very like it through the skin of his teeth. And then the helicopter spots them. They have to run away. His buddy gets shot. He picks him up like a Boy Scout. And then he takes an AK and shoots at the helicopter gas tank, I guess, which makes the helicopter crash and we have a huge explosion. But following that, Bishop actually pulls some strings and gets Bishop assigned to like some really shit desk job in Germany. And he's like watching him the whole time. And I think he said in the movie, when I thought he couldn't take it anymore, I decided to make my move. And it was actually a cute little where he's got one of his cover wives and he comes off the train and Bishop recognizes Muir. And it was really Bishop trying to set up that meeting. And that's when we get the nice pitch to join the agency.
Says you'd be, CIA will train you. You'd be reporting to me. And then they proceed into a really good training sequence, I think. I mean, we've seen these before in a few movies. Right. Pretty quick. I don't want to say slapdash, but like it just really felt like the movie just wanted to like get you through the idea this person had been trained with
Right.
like a very quick montage. But I appreciated very much the training sequences and scenes that we get here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I've said to you a few times that something that bugs me in most spy stories, it's always like a training movie or it's always like a mole movie. But this I really liked because as they're cutting back and forth between the past and the present, you're watching Bishop learn, and like you just pointed out, it's not just a montage. Even though I do like some of those montages because they give you cute little like trade crafty tips, but this one it seemed more drawn out, like it was developed well. Like it was nice to watch. I liked it.
I liked it. I like how, I like how Muir tells Bishop, sometimes, just for one thing, you can keep it simple. Like a lot of times, all you need is a stick of gum, a pocket knife, and a smile.
Right.
and the stick of gum is something that Bishop's actually going to use later in his career. So that's a nice little call out here. But a lot of it goes to, well, we see him getting trained to beat polygraphs, which is cool. And
Oh, don't forget the cigarettes and lighter.
Oh yeah. We're always
Can't
seeing
forget.
that's a great icebreaker, right? You see
Right,
that you
right.
see that in spies are always like, come, even sometimes that's their code phrase or something, or it's an excuse
Yeah.
for a brush past. What do we call that?
Right. Yeah.
Is just, I don't want to look like I know who you are. I'm just a random stranger on the street that lost his lighter.
Right.
It's a
And it
nice.
definitely comes up later. So it's definitely want to point out the cigarettes and lighter.
The main thing though is, like the observation training
Mhm.
that Muir gives Bishop, and specifically about like how to watch reflections and just like the constant sit rep awareness of like everything that's going on around you.
Mhm.
With your ears open, your eyes open, picking up every detail and training yourself to do that until it's totally second nature, and that you're just doing it without even having to think about it
Uh-huh.
is nice, and I mean, you see that in a lot of movies, but in this movie in particular, when we get to present day, when where Muir is and his operations in the office at Langley are the main like part of the story, like you can really see and fucking believe that Muir knows what he's talking about because he uses the shit out of that,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Next up is Berlin, an operation that occurs sometime between 1976 and 1985. Not sure that the movie specified that. This is our next flashback, which again the flashbacks are kind of spaced out throughout the movie, but we wanted to get you through the chronological situation. So we basically got like Bishop. He's trained, or at least he's trained up enough to be uh, doing some actual field work, right?
Right. And I think at this point he's getting an agent out of East Berlin into West Berlin. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like really his only job at this point.
Like he's the wheelman. He's the final point of contact. Everything else has probably been set up by Redford,
Right.
by Muir. Um, they call it Operation Rodeo. It's sort of a double op sort of thing, because what we're gonna find out, like the real reason they're trying to get this guy out of Berlin is to expose Anne Cathcart, who is a diplomat of some kind. She's involved in their Berlin embassy,
Well, I don't
and
think it was part of the op to suss her out. I think she was just the mole that he talked about in the meeting. That it turned out there was a mole, and that's how we spotted it was her at that party, and that's when Redford realized the op is a no go, and they had to basically get rid of Schmidt, who was the guy they were bringing across.
Okay, well, let's walk through like what happens, which is pretty straightforward.
Right.
And then you tell me, because I'm a little confused by it. Basically, Muir has made all the arrangements to have Bishop pick up Schmidt and get him safely across the Iron Curtain and safe to Munich. While Bishop is doing this, Muir is at a party at the embassy, and Anne Cathcart is like kind of flirting around with him. It looks like they've known each other for a long time. She's kind of trying to get sweet with him, trying to flirt around with him, but he says
let's
"Nah,
go outside."
Yeah,
Muir.
no. He's like, "No, I'm working," and she like plainly asks him, leans in with a whisper and says like, "Are you bringing someone across?" And he just gives her a look, and then she kind of seems to acknowledge that and then walks away. And then when Muir gets to the phone, a prearranged phone call with Bishop, he says, "Okay, you got to dump Schmidt. You got to dump him.
Right.
This is fucked. The plan, it's over." Later, Bishop's going to get really mad at Muir about dumping Schmidt. He's going to be like, I could have got him across. We were okay. And Muir is like, nope, the thing was busted. And also, by the way, don't question my orders anymore, because this wasn't about Schmidt. This was about exposing Anne Cathcart. It doesn't super fly for me because, number one, okay, minus spy points, I think, for Cathcart just plainly asking Muir, "Are you bringing someone across?" And then walking away, like, that just seems like really suspicious activity.
Yeah.
And then when Muir gets on the phone with Bishop just like a minute later, somehow that interaction with Cathcart seems to have been like the reason that he says, "We got to burn Schmidt." Mm-hmm. But the Popo were already on top of Schmidt. Like, they were already in pursuit. So I don't see what any of the interaction with Cathcart had to do with actually exposing her as a mole. Like, I would call this chicken feed. It looks like spy stuff, but it's kind of not under scrutiny.
I think this is more just character building for Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
This is like his first real getting his feet wet, and he's supposed to bring a guy across the border, and then he has to kick the guy out, and now he's really pissed because they used him, and he's probably going to get murdered. And Bishop, and this is the best. The Bishop's response is like, first of all, that guy Schmidt went to the Russians. You don't know who's playing who.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Don't ever drop, don't ever lower your, don't ever do anything for an asset. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, always just be willing to cut them off at a moment's notice. And also fucking obey orders, because you don't know everything that I'm doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so a lot of this kind of happened fast. So I think this is more character building for Bishop, that he's starting to learn what the life is in spycraft. But I mean, I still really enjoyed watching it, and I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, specifically when he's got Schmidt in the car, there's a nice little trade-off to get Schmidt in the car, and then he's driving, and then he's being followed, and how he shakes him is he tells Schmidt, "Take a drink of this vodka in the glove compartment and pour it on your shirt. We're supposed to be drunk." And then Bishop runs out of the car, like parks the car onto the curb in front of like a pub, jumps in the pub. The bartender obviously knows him because he's like signaling him they're coming.
Right, because they've pre-planned this for sure.
So yeah, that's what I really wanted to point out is major plus spy points. In fact, this is getting my best tradecraft number 3. From what I've been reading and seeing in a lot of tradecraft stuff is you got to have like checkpoints. Like it's kind of like counter surveillance ideas is having these checkpoints. And so he had a contact at this bar, and the bartender tells him, "Yo, they're coming." They come in and they're like, "Where is he?" And then he goes in the bathroom and he like just chugs like this little vial that makes him like Ralph immediately all over a urinal. The
Mm-hmm.
the
Oh
guy's
yeah.
tailing him walk in and he's like, "Oh, okay." And he just walks out and tells his partner it's just a couple of drunks, and he just slams like Bishop against the car. So I'm definitely making this my number 3 best tradecraft because I thought that was a really good way to shake a tail. Like and from what I've like read and heard about counter surveillance, having checkpoints is really important. So that checkpoint specifically was meant to make a call. Their cover for stopping there was just being drunk and having to throw up. You know, so I just love the little detail of him just like driving up over the corner curb and jumping out of the car and telling Schmidt to pour vodka on him and take a big swig.
Yeah, it's
I
great.
really
It's
liked it.
it's it's great.
Yeah.
He's not just thinking on his feet. Like he's kind of, because I mean he has that little minor toxin in his pocket. So like
Right.
he's immediately thought of like what we're gonna do if problems arise.
Right. And so I really like that. So
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah, me
definitely
too.
pointing that out.
So, but
But
yeah. Go ahead.
eventually, like at the phone call, this is where Redford tells him that everything's blown and dump Schmidt. And like we were talking about how this really affected Bishop. Um,
It's basically it's a whole setup to get the situation of the scene on the tower, like afterwards, where Muir is dressing Bishop down for even questioning him for a second. I think he even says like, the 7 seconds that we were arguing about it could have been the
right.
difference between life and death.
Yeah, and he
And
says, I think, yeah, Bishop's like, fuck your rules, man. And Muir's like, yeah, that's fine. But those rules saved your life today. Yeah. So,
right. And he says, and this is the other thing, the little rule that he's going to totally break, and is like kind of the point of the movie. He says, if you ever go off the reservation, I'm not going to come after you.
right.
And the tower scene, by the way, I really dug. Like they used helicopter shots around it to give like really to kind of like visually give this whole like idea of Bishop's world getting kind of whirled around, in his head of what's
Right.
going on. Like
Yeah.
it really added so much emotion to it. And what I found out, just movie making trivia, the at this point, Tony Scott had already burned all of his budget. The movie did go over budget, like by quite a bit. But he wanted these shots so bad that he used his own personal helicopter.
Oh, he's serious?
Yeah.
Nice.
And I saw too that Robert Redford was confused. Said he was confused and he didn't understand like why they needed the helicopter shots, but that like when he saw the end result, he was like, "Oh yeah, fuck yeah, this is great."
Yeah.
It's one of the key scenes in the film, right?
Yeah. I think that's what I say. I think Berlin was more about building Bishop and Redford's relationship as well as their personal characters.
And the three flashbacks do kind of all function together pretty well, in that like in the first one, like their partnership seems to just be fine. Like it's like the honeymoon phase.
Right.
And then the second one, the thing in Germany was like, it just kind of shows some cracks between the two characters a little bit of tension. But it's the third one in Beirut where like we basically are going to end in divorce.
Right.
And see that we just we're just oil and water. But not to skip too far ahead, but yeah, let's jump ahead and grab Beirut 1985. So at this point, they've been working together for like a solid 10 years. right? And you also see that too, also in the flashbacks. Like you see their coordination is, I feel like appropriately more tight, in each of the three. By 1985, you can see them. You can feel that they've got like a thing going. They're in a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 1985. That's at this point like a really long running civil war in Lebanon has been exacerbated by the involvement of Israel and the PLO, who are basically running a proxy war
Mm-hmm.
in Lebanon. At first, I couldn't figure out like which side was supposed to be backing the Lebanese government and who was supporting the pro-Syrian rebels. Either way, the U.S. is involved in this basically as part of a multinational force that's trying to end the involvement of both Israel and the PLO. Because like a ceasefire agreement was reached between those two powers in 1983. Like, you're supposed to stop shooting each other, right? But
Right.
like they're still like running their like Cold War bullshit, proxy war over in
Right.
neighboring Lebanon. And so
Yeah.
this is like 1985, and this is like the CIA is getting involved because they're like, no, really, stop shooting at each other, or stop inciting other people to shoot at each other to prosecute your fucking disputes with each other.
Right.
So the target in this one, this one's basically an assassination gig, right?
Yeah.
The target's
They're targeting Salome, which I think we both thought was the Red Prince
right from Munich.
from Munich.
That was our first thought, which I was like, woohoo, connection.
Right. Yeah.
That was the guy, Salome. The Red Prince Salome was the founder of Black September,
Mm-hmm.
and was supposedly involved in the whole 1972 Munich massacre that the movie Munich talks about.
Right.
But a couple things, like I was noting some discrepancies, like that Muir identified him as Sheikh Salome, and I was like, okay, Salome was not a sheikh. His father was, but he wasn't. And then after looking at it a little bit more, I realized like, no, this is a separate dude. This is a fictional Salome. So just kind of using his name in there was kind of I don't know.
I'm sure there's some fact in the fiction though.
Maybe.
Just using a name like that, especially for the time period, there's probably they're probably walking a line, maybe, to make it as fictional and realistic as possible.
Yeah, I almost thought it was like almost maybe bordering on a little irresponsible to use that name, because
Right.
that name has got some history behind it.
Yeah.
Some real history. The real Salome, like I think we said, or should have said, like, was the founder of Black September, which is Black September was named after Black September was named after the war that kind of incited this war that's going on in Lebanon. It was the war
From what I understand,
Yeah, go
Black
ahead.
September was a terrorist organization that was like a revenge terrorist organization because some really shady shit happened involving superpowers and like smaller conflicts like we're talking about right now. And that's why all of those terrorist actions by Black September were taken on.
Right. This is what I got. Black September, the terrorist organization, was named after the blacks, like a very bad September
Right.
that was also known as Black September. And it was like a war in which the PLO fought and lost in Jordan. And the Jordanian king ended up kicking all the pro-PLO people out into Lebanon, which is where they started the Lebanese Civil War. That is where we're at right now in 1985.
Okay. So that puts the PLO on the side of the rebels then.
Right, yeah, and Israel supporting the Lebanese government. And supposedly the CIA is there to like kind of like get both of those people out, but like if we ever had to, I mean, our government, not speaking for myself, but our government, if they ever had to make a choice between Israel and the PLO, where
Right.
we're going to land.
Yeah. And what were they taking Salome out for anyway? He was like an arms dealer or something?
No, they said he was involved in the bombing of an embassy that killed a whole bunch of civilians.
Oh, so this is a revenge kill.
Yeah, I guess.
Or it's stopping a further travesty like that in the future type of thing.
Sure. Well, that's what we would say.
Right.
Now, Bishop's working in Beirut under the cover of a photojournalist, which I initially wanted to flag that as minus spy points because I had heard that was one of the 3 covers the CIA is not supposed to use. But it got me thinking, this is back in 1985. I don't actually know when the rule came into play. And also I only had one source on that, which was the CIA lady who was head of chief of disguise for the CIA for some years. Looking back on that, by the way, interesting tidbit. I noted that was that's Jonna Mendez. That's Tony Mendez's wife. The guy from
Oh,
Argo.
really?
Yeah, the guy from Argo.
Always going for a circle.
I dug into it some more, but the first thing I'm going to say is I went back and looked at exactly what she said, and this is a quote. She says, "There are 3 covers that are basically off limits to CIA, and that would be religious figure, media figure, and Peace Corps." So there's that word basically that she used, and it also doesn't tell us like when, if that is the policy, like when that policy came around.
Right.
But I dug in on it some more. Your intuition had been correct. That initial thing kind of is attached to fallout from Watergate and the Family Jewels report that was leaked. So it's 73 that the Watergate scandal starts getting traction. And the current director, Schlesinger of the CIA, commissions the Family Jewels report. He just basically wants everyone in CIA to collect everything we maybe shouldn't have done. That's not consistent with our charter, is what he said. A year later, some of that stuff got leaked out. And a year after that is the Church Committee, which was a big investigation by the Senate into CIA activities. They discussed a lot of things in that committee, but one thing was the use of journalists as CIA assets. Pretty much what they came to was a conclusion that you should not do this. And kind of that's what they said. And that was George Herbert Bush was the director. Director of the CIA in 1976, I guess.
Yeah, he took over after Colby.
Okay. So Colby wasn't around that long, was he?
No, he was really just put up after Watergate broke by he pretty much protected the company from being like dismantled. He was basically there to just deal with Congress and then resigned after. So I think he was specifically
to damage control, like all the stuff,
right.
all the stuff kind of fell in his lap. I think you said maybe before that maybe it was his background as a lawyer was why they tacked him for that.
I think he was in the OSS, and after he left the OSS, he worked at a law firm, and then the CIA was established, and he was brought into the CIA. And because he had all that law experience, especially with like, it was a pretty hefty law firm, so he was able to kind of deal with the Senate. There was a really good documentary about it, The Man Who Knew Nobody Knew. Because after Watergate broke, the director Schlesinger had to resign. And then Colby was put up specifically just to deal with Senate, and that's how a lot of the Family Jewels stuff type of came out.
Okay,
pretty much any operation we're aware of from the past that's like really shady, and the foundation for a number of conspiracy theories came out of the Watergate scandal.
The next director, after I guess Colby's done his cleanup work, George Herbert Bush, gives the order, no more journalists. But his replacement effectively like rescinded the order by saying like that the CIA director could make the call in life or death situations to use a journalist. So, and then, you know, they don't publicize like what a life or death situation is. So it kind of makes it toothless. The issue got revisited in 96. And at that point, they specifically talked about all three of the covers that Jana Mendez had said were verboten, journalists, clergy, and the Peace Corps. The end result of that was, again, to make it like a full stop, like really, no, don't do this, except by direct order by the president. But at the end, they actually snuck some language in at the very end that said it was also okay if the asset was voluntarily cooperating, which pretty much sucks all the teeth out of it.
Right.
And it looks like, and several senators actually said that voted for this bill, that they were confused by it, or they didn't notice that last little sneak in, and they thought they were outlawing the use of journalists. And in fact, what they actually did was kind of make it officially okay in certain situations, which you could really construe to be any situation. So,
right.
So basically, between 76 and 96, everyone thought journalists were completely off limits, but they really weren't. And now they're kind of really not, even though everyone seems, except certain people in the CIA, seem to agree that they really should be. So that's where we are with that. Now, as far as now in this case, Bishop isn't using an actual journalist as an asset. He's just using a cover. So that could slightly be a different situation, but it still runs into the core problem where, like, if it's not a question of like how many times or in what situations the CIA uses journalists or journalistic cover in their operations, it's how many times the enemy will suspect a journalist of working for the CIA.
Right. It kind of like puts other journalists in danger, especially if it's like something that's done a lot. So I guess I could kind of see it in an emergency situation, but if it's like that's the cover, and you see that kind of in a lot of spy stories, and it probably was overused too much that pretty much every journalist was suspected of being a spy, and that kind of puts them in danger.
Yeah. And ditto for, again, clergy and Peace Corps. Did my research on this one and found something really interesting. The Peace Corps has one and only one automatic disqualification if you've ever worked for the CIA.
That's pretty interesting. There's a lot of intelligence agencies, especially after they made that happen. So why just the CIA?
I don't know.
Smiley is suspicious, Percy.
It sounds like something happened and the Peace Corps is not having it ever again.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, I'm not especially thrilled to see a CIA agent using any of these covers of journalist, clergy, or foreign aid worker, especially anytime after 1976. But apparently the rules of this are at least somewhat in doubt. I think we're still going to call it minus spy points unless it's in a situation where it's of like a national emergency that is so great that the CIA director or the president himself would like overrule the basic guidelines. I'll tell you something I do like about his cover. In fact, I love is that he's running around Beirut. He's a photojournalist. I'm a photojournalist. I'm not a spy. I'm a photojournalist. And he's wearing a fucking San Diego Padres baseball cap,
right?
That just clearly
yeah
identifies himself as an American like from a mile away,
Right.
which I think is fucking great. And
Yeah.
plus spy points because, if no spy would do that,
Right.
no spy would just like look that, proud to be an American. Although,
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean, it's hiding in plain sight. He's standing out as obviously a journalist from America.
that's why it makes my number 3 best tradecraft in the movie. Okay, so you've made the decision. You've made the conscious decision. I'm going to wear a baseball cap. Unless maybe he's just such a super fan, he would wear it no matter what.
Right.
like whatchamacallit, fucking Jack Nicholson in The Departed. Like,
Yeah.
He's supposed to be wearing, like the script called for him to be wearing a baseball cap from Boston.
The Red Sox.
The Red Sox, right. But like apparently Jack Nicholson is such a fucking Yankees fan that he was like, fuck that, I'm wearing a Yankees cap. And it's just like, well, it's Jack Nicholson. What are you going to fucking do?
Right.
But anyways, but my question was, because, okay, like let's say somebody did start getting suspicious about you and looking into your shit a little bit. Like, do you think that having the baseball cap be from your actual hometown, is that good spycraft or bad spycraft?
I mean, they're gonna go through San Diego first, and there's a lot of records and people to go through. But I mean, I agree with you. It's a little too close for comfort. Like he could have just, I don't know, he could have put on another hat.
And then just really quick, stupid, pedantic trivia. In 1985, the Padres cap was brown, and in this movie, it's shown as blue.
Oh,
I love IMDb trivia so much. All right, back to the op.
right.
They want to take out Salome.
Right.
They want him to appear to die of natural causes. This is important because they don't want anybody to know that any fucking shenanigans happen. CIA is not supposed to be here. And he's got an appointment to see a doctor in Beirut, which is actually also kind of weird. Like, why does this guy, like, if he's got a medical condition, he wants to go see a doctor in like the most fucked up fucking place at the time. Like, yeah, find another doctor or fly the doctor to you,
Right.
and
right.
have him fly him out to the Bahamas. But
they're cousins.
Right. It's a family friend. Exactly. But
Yeah.
still, it would have made more sense for them, like, to get the guy out of Beirut.
Right.
Especially in 1985. So Bishop's on the case. He's sent in here he's sent in here first. Unlike the Berlin operation, which felt like Robert Redford did all the groundwork, right? This is a case where, again, like Bishop's skills, 10 years later, 10 years into the game, he's more advanced. You're going to send him in first. And then when he's got something, then he's going to call in his guy. He's going to call in Muir when they're really ready to like seal the deal. But, he's invested all of his time in kind of embedding himself into the framework of this war, working as a photojournalist. I'm just trying to document what's going on. And what he's got here, his angle, because what they're thinking is, okay, we want to get to Salome. Salome's going to be visiting this doctor. So we need to get to the doctor. How do we get to the doctor? Well, Bishop has seen Hadley at the Commodore, which is apparently like a place where just a lot of Arab expatriates or visitors to Beirut kind of congregate. And, he manages to run into her at the embassy where she's getting some pharmaceuticals. and then manages to also leverage that into like a chance meeting, supposedly, at a camp where she's doing some aid work, and that's how he kind of like gets a line in on meeting the doctor, right?
Yeah.
Once he meets the doctor, and the doctor seems like, just a fantastic human being. That's
just wants to help kids and stay safe, and
just working overtime trying to mitigate the absolute horror that this war is inflicting on civilians and kids.
Yeah.
Like you say. And here's some huge, just fucking great plus spy points. Could have made my best list. It was definitely a contender. Is that Bishop does like a piece on the doctor for the New York Times, which talk about stroking your ego,
right?
Of your asset, right?
Major plus spy points on that one. Yeah. Totally. Like he shows him, like I love that shot where he shows him the pictures. Oh, these are nice. Yeah. Like you could tell he's a humble doctor, right? And he's just there like he's not a guy that's in it for the glory. He's really just trying to show up and help these kids. And by giving him like a piece with the New York Times and here's some pictures of you doing what you're doing, it's really validating his work, and it probably gives him like a recharge of like, yeah, I'm actually making an impact. It's kind of like sad, sketchy, kind of like how it's all like planned out, but like you see how happy he is, and you're like, oh, he's so happy, and then you watch the op unfold, and you're just like, oh man,
right? Yeah, and the doctor, the fact the doctor is such a genuinely good human being is going to set us up for the emotional fallout that is going to happen, that we're going to talk about soon-ish.
Right.
But also just to flag too that as a photojournalist, as your cover, like he's just freely like snapping pictures left and right. He's getting all the information, and not having to like do it from like a mile away with a telephoto lens, hiding in a barrel or something.
Yeah, and I liked when Muir was in the meeting back at Langley in the present time, because we're still in flashback time. He mentions, him being a journalist worked out well. He was already in Vietnam, so like being in this like war-torn situation wasn't really bad for him. And so him taking these pictures, he already had an eye for stuff. So like really worked out well. His photos were like really good. So he could really pull off being a photojournalist in the middle of a battle.
Now once he's got the setup, Bishop calls Muir in. He's got the information on where Salome is intending to stay while he's in Beirut. So that's when Muir comes in on the operation, and he tells him Langley wants a backup. He wants the Lebanese militia to also like have their own plan, in case our plan fails. And our plan, again, by the way, we want the Salome, the target, to appear to die from natural causes. So what we're going to do that is use contact poison on the stethoscope. And apparently it's a type that like it won't kill him for like a couple days. So there won't be.
Well, I think it was 12 hours.
Okay, 12 hours. That's still good though. It's still enough time, enough distance to make it difficult to connect the doctor visit with the death.
Right.
Plus spy points. Overall, it's a good plan.
I just want to talk about the recruitment of the doctor. Bishop brings in Muir, and it's time for the pitch. And Muir basically says, your parents died, it looked like natural causes. Well, what if I told you that it was Salome who was responsible for the death? I want to give you an opportunity to do something about it that would fit both of our interests. And it's a really strong scene. And, we had talked about like how humble this doctor is. Like he's just genuinely a good guy. And throwing this in his face after the New York Times piece, after all this stuff. It's, his emotions are all over the place. And now he's seeing like his parents were probably murdered by his cousin, who he's like his personal doctor, who he's supposed to be trusted by or whatever. And him making the decision that yes, he's gonna cooperate with the plan to murder Salome. And I really wanted to point this out because this is gonna make my number 2 best tradecraft. Was it's just it's a really sketchy way to do this because it's super manipulative. But this is I mean, the show is all about analyzing tradecraft,
Yeah.
and this is how you do it.
Unfortunately, yeah.
This is exactly how you do it. And,
Dirty deeds.
Yeah, exactly. It's done dirt cheap, right?
And it could have been a lie. It could have been falsified. We don't know.
That's true. I mean, his parents dying weren't false, obviously, because it affected him.
Right. Yeah, of course. But, as to whether or not Salome was actually responsible, that's something I would believe that Muir, the character, would be capable of falsifying.
Right. I agree. And we don't get any confirmation whatsoever. So, like, you could even complain, like, like in movies, like, oh, it just so happened. But, like, we don't even really know if it just so happened or not. It was just both of his parents died together. It's a little fishy from, what was it, like carbon dioxide poisoning or something? Carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah, I didn't catch it.
I don't remember what it was, but all of it was just kind of super fishy. So this whole story made a lot of sense. And it made enough sense to convince the doctor, who's taken his doctor oath to never take a life or to always try and save a life.
Well, yeah. I don't know if they still have the exact same. I don't know if the Hippocratic Oath is international necessarily, but that's a good point.
I mean, just from this guy, like I was saying, we know he's like a humble dude, that he just wants to save people. Especially in American cinema, like a doctor doing something like that is a big deal. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and it's believable. And so that's why it definitely made my best tradecraft list, because that was a hefty moment in the film cinematically, but it was also like real legit recruiting of an asset. It's just, it's so hard. It hurts so good. It hurts so good.
Because we know what's coming.
Yeah.
So the problem here, in my opinion, that I wanted to flag was like, okay, so you got the plan, you got the stethoscope plan, and you have a backup plan. That's fine. Have a backup plan. As we're going to find out, though, there are downsides to running both versions of the plan at the same hour of the same day, minus spy points. Like, maybe if something had happened with the doctor, then the next day you could run the motorcycle bomb or the van bomb into the hotel.
Right. But I'm not sure that it was planned at the same time of the same, because from the interviews in the office, Muir is like, it was just supposed to be a backup plan. So I'm wondering if the militia has this piece of information. They're like, go fuck yourself. We're going to bomb the fuck out of that building.
Yeah, Bishop is the guy that immediately says like, oh, we can't trust those guys. Those guys are fucking nuts. They're cowboys.
Right.
And it's also true that like on the day that they're going to do this thing, like a big like street war breaks out, which causes like a lot of complications for everyone. And maybe the Lebanese militia guys were just like, this is our chance. This is our chance right now during the confusion. We should go now. These Americans, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. All you need is a bomb and a van.
Right.
Fucking stethoscope. What the fuck is that? And that's why it all goes fucking tits up. Is because the Lebanese militia guys with their basically the backup plan arrives ahead of schedule. And even though Bishop has like moved heaven and earth trying to get the doctor into proper position, what it ends up happening is getting the doctor killed. like when the bomb shows up.
It was the bombing, and the bombing is definitely kind of the hair that broke the camel's back to have Bishop walk, because not only did we have Berlin where he lost an asset that he worked really hard for, and like I'm sure as an agent, like you treat your assets like your kids probably, and to have to drop an asset like that is really hard. And now he's one. So this is where I'm going to bring up.
Hold on. Again, let's
Right.
think about the 3 flashbacks in order and how they function.
Right.
In the first one, you want me to kill an enemy general on the field of battle. Okay, cool. The second one, it's a little more dicey. It's you want me to betray a guy and then you tell me he was actually trying to betray you at the same time, looking at his own interests. It's like dodgy, right?
Right.
So the first situation, crystal clear. The second situation, maybe a little murky. Maybe there was some gray involved here, right?
Right.
But this situation, it's gone to crystal clear on the other side of the spectrum. This doctor, like we talked about, was a truly good man that didn't deserve to die. And so I think that's nicely done, like as an arc, the way the 3 flashbacks work together of proceeding again through, like I said, like the honeymoon to the divorce between Bishop and Muir.
Right. But even in the third flashback, that's why I really wanted to talk about Hadley, is he meets this woman that's genuinely trying to help kids. She's in a war-torn area. When Muir finds out, and by the way, Muir had been watching Bishop. When Muir finds out, he comes over because Bishop had been spending every night with her. Muir like kind of sets up another meeting with them and starts like grilling Hadley about her past. And it turns out Hadley was a terrorist in London and can't go back home. And so like you were talking about each 3 of the 3 flashbacks being slowly leading up to the divorce. Well, the third flashback kind of has that same format where he meets this woman that he's like completely infatuated with. And then, Muir shows up and is like a total dick to her. And then it turns out, well, Muir might have been right. You should have done your fucking homework, right? And like, okay, it's kind of, all right, well, there's a little gray there. But then kaboom, we just murdered a doctor who didn't deserve it, who was about to kill a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it just gets progressively worse this whole time. And that's when Bishop is just like, I'm out. I don't want to end up like you. And I think Bishop's plan is to just live with Hadley, who he's like just completely fallen head over heels for because he didn't do his homework first. Which is kind of,
the head over heels thing. It's kind of rushed through a little bit. This movie is trying to do a lot of stuff, but like we just kind of assume we don't really get like some great. When we find out how far he's willing to go for her,
right
later in his story, like that's really the major evidence that we get that this is like the love of his life. I don't think it was really like told. Their romance was kind of, I don't know, penciled in a little bit.
Well, I don't think we needed a Hallmark Channel romance film. I think the audience would have already understood, especially the timing of this film. You probably already have seen tons of spy films, and it's assumed, okay, spies fall in love.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I don't think we needed, the whole story of them falling for each other. I think it's, like you said, it's established later that the lengths he would have gone for this woman, especially since. And I think him finding out the truth about her really is what made him fall for her.
Now, let's talk about the truth about her, right? So I just want to back up and tackle Elizabeth Hadley like a little bit from the jump and
Right.
get her established because she's really important to the film.
Absolutely.
So she was basically like just a waypoint along the way from Bishop landing in, a way to get to the doctor.
Yeah.
And according to Muir's rules, like as soon as you're done with her, you're fucking done with her.
Right.
But apparently they fell in love.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some kind of cool shit with that. Like, tell me your real name, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's very Hollywoody, in my opinion.
Right.
But so he was still attached to her. So like, even after he splits up with but the thing is like, Muir also was like kind of his spidey senses were tingling. Like, you're paying way too much. This asset you're done. Like, you should be walking away, but you're not. You're still like sleeping with her and stuff. And so he does his homework and finds out that Hadley's got a past. In Britain, she was involved with, again, a fictional, like, I don't know, a bombing of a hotel with a bunch of Chinese people in it or something. Supposedly, she didn't know there were going to be casualties.
They were like kind of a civil rights group type of thing,
right? Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah,
and they bombed a Chinese building that was supposed to be empty, and it wasn't. So, like, she was like, "I have to live with that," and so she's been spending her life helping kids in like a war-torn territory or area, I guess.
Maybe as some kind of penance.
Yeah, and so that's why I think that's what really, like, he was already kind of into her, and now it's probably like, oh, I see, you have done this terrible thing and you have to live with it. I've done some terrible things and I have to live with it, and I see that you're making up for it, and I want to be a part of that.
Right. But
it doesn't work out like that.
Right, because, well, he first splits with Muir, and then he goes back to try to maybe make his peace and make a new life with Hadley, but he just finds a Dear John note, and that's because Muir is fucking evil. Sort of. I mean, sort of. I wish they had let him be a little more evil in this movie, but he definitely did a horrible thing.
This is my thought on the whole thing. When the first meeting with Hadley, he starts poking at her and grilling her to show, hey, you know what? You think you were marking her. She might have marked you. Maybe she thinks you have an asset.
That's always the question, right?
That's always the question.
Who's playing who? And often it's a little bit of both.
Right. And so I think what happened when Bishop tells Muir, I'm done, Muir saw Bishop as too valuable to let go.
Mm-hmm.
And so what he does is he trades Elizabeth Hadley for an ambassador being held by the Chinese government for espionage, and leaves a Dear John note thinking Bishop is going to be like, oh, well, I lost my love. She doesn't want me. Fuck it. I'll stay in. And this is actually going to be my number one worst tradecraft. We later, the only really kind of hiccup, I think, Muir actually admits that he underestimates Bishop's love for Hadley, and we're going to find out later because we're going to talk about.
Yeah, he fucked up here. That's for sure. And he admits it.
And I think what he should have done is just been like, okay, fine, live your life, be happy, whatever. But what I think is he, as like a very seasoned agent, saw the talent within Bishop and was like, we can't let this go. We got to do something. And so I like the chess playing that he pulled, even though it was hella shady. But I think it was a big fuck up, because had he paid attention to Bishop's reactions and Bishop's decisions, involving Hadley that he should have picked up on. Like, I think this guy actually is in love with her.
Let's cut it here and call that part 1. We've tackled this one in chronological order, which I always think is the best approach for tradecraft analysis when we have movies that jump around in time. We have covered here all 3 of the flashbacks that set up the relationship between the 2 primary characters, those being, of course, Muir and Bishop. In part 2, coming up next week, we're going to jump right into the movie's present-day timeline, by which we mean 1991. And as always, we'll have our final verdict on the tradecraft portrayed by the film's characters.
As always, the best way to make sure you don't miss out on that is to hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Google, or your favorite podcast app. Also, you can find updates on our Facebook page or website, spieslikeus.net. And please, if you can help us out and give us some feedback by rating us and leaving comments. We're always trying to improve the show, and your thoughts would be a big help.
And you know what? Go ahead.
We are always trying to improve the show, and your thoughts would be a big help.
And you know what? A big thing you could do really easy. Just get on iTunes, if that's where you're listening, give it a star rating. I don't even care if you give us 5 stars. 5 if you think we deserve it, but we need more ratings so that we bump up and more people can find the show. Thanks.
The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.